Scientology. I've worked with Scientologists, and I will tell you, from my experience, I've never had a bad experience with Scientologists. They work very hard. I recruited people from the Sea organization. They would work 16-hour days. They were not my agents. We shared an office together selling insurance. So they ran their own agency. I ran my own agency, but we were overlapping each other, and I would help them grow their business because one of the guys, became a friend. And when we're at the office late at night, midnight, 11 o'clock, I'm finishing up my day, and I would say, well, do you know what a cyst is? We do something called a cyst. We do something, and I went to the facility. I got some of the books. I read some of the material, Dianetics and other things. I probably have a couple Dianetics copies in my office. And you see some things that are interesting. Then you read about the founder. Then things get a little bit suspicious. And like, wait a minute, and then you read Leah Remini and watch the stuff she did, or Presley. Is it Leslie Presley, if I'm saying it correctly? One of the Presleys, right? Who was the one that was...
Priscilla Presley.
Priscilla Presley.
Joined, and she brought in Lisa Marie Presley, her daughter.
That's right. So what patterns do you notice with Scientology like this? However, they've never gotten in trouble. Not they've never gotten in trouble. They're still around. They're still there. They still have their religion exemption. They still have the tax benefits. What patterns do you notice there?
Well, I think what you see is worship of the leader. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard is considered sacrosanct, really, and his writings are sacred. In fact, they have them written in metal and stored in a mountain to preserve them. So I think what you see typically is a kind of worship of L. Ron Hubbard, though he is dead. He was succeeded by his secretary, David Miscavige, who now occupies a similar position in Scientology.
Very powerful.
He's a virtual dictator, in my opinion. And so what you see...
Have you ever met him?
No, I have not.
Never met him.
I've met their lead counsel, Kendrick Moxon. I've met quite a few Scientologists over the years and former Scientologists. There's a division of who is what could be called a public or a member of Scientology, but they are not a full-time member. The people that are in SeaOrg, the Sea organization, are full-timers. There are thousands of them, and they staff buildings and so forth. I would question the way those people are treated, because I've talked to former SeaOrg members, and what is their health care benefit? What is their retirement benefit? How much are they actually paid? Why do they have to sign billion-year contracts for this life and successive lives? Are they or are they not treated fairly? There are allegations that they're not, based on what people have said that have left. Then there's the whole celebrity crowd, John Travolta, Tom Cruise, Jenna Elfman, the people who are treated very well within Scientology. Mm-hmm. Scientology has celebrity centers to cater to celebrities. So I would say that you could divide Scientology up, and you could say, well, the celebrities are treated in one way, in which they would say Scientology is great. We're being treated very well. And then at the bottom, you have these SeaOrg members, many of them brought into Scientology as children, raised within Scientology, schooled by Scientology, and they become the backbone of Scientology. The worker drones that keep everything going. So Scientology also, the families that call me will talk about how a loved one became involved in Scientology, and the deeper they became involved, the more control Scientology had over their life. And as the family questioned that and questioned what was happening and how it was affecting their life, Scientology would say, well, they're a suppressive person, and you need to disconnect from them. So I have done interventions to get people out of Scientology. And one case, which I recount in my book, Cults Inside Out, was a man who had been in Scientology for 27 years. He was almost 50 when I met him. And he had a wife, he had 2 children. He had always functioned as someone who would take courses and be active with Scientology, but had his own home, his own life, his family. And his wife would take courses and his children to humor him, as they would tell me, but they never became fully immersed. At one point, Scientology says to this guy, "We want you to become a full-time SeaOrg member, divorce your wife, leave your family, move into SeaOrg housing." Because SeaOrg members, they eat, sleep, breathe Scientology. And he was going to do that. And then his family contacted me. We did an intervention, and he decided to leave Scientology, which for him was really very difficult because all of his friends were Scientologists, and he had grown up in this organization. So when he walked away, he thought, can I still have these friends, or will I have to let them go? And it ended up where he had to let them go because they kept trying to pull him back in, and he had to leave. And I can remember at one point his children literally getting on their knees in front of him. He was sitting in his living room, and they were crying and they were saying, "Dad, don't do it. Don't go into SeaOrg. Don't leave us. We love you. We want you in our lives. Please don't do this." And of course, his wife was crying. He started crying. I think what finally helped him to get out of Scientology was realizing that the writings of L. Ron Hubbard were flawed. Hubbard believed that toxins could reside in the fatty tissues of the body indefinitely. And so Scientology has a routine called the purification rundown, in which you go through saunas.
Lake Arrowhead is one of their main facilities. Yeah.
And you take large doses of niacin and so on, and you're supposedly going to sweat out whatever toxins are in your body. And Hubbard would propose, or he wrote, that let's say you at one time did LSD, or at one time you took antidepressants or whatever. They're in your fatty tissue indefinitely until you do the purification rundown, which of course Scientology collects money for. They can collect thousands of dollars for somebody doing the purification rundown. At one point, they were through an organization called Narconon, which is, in my opinion, a front for Scientology. It's an anti-drug program, and Narconon runs drug rehabs, but it's based on Scientology, and it's controversial. And so Narconon approached the California school system, and they said, let us do an anti-drug program for your schools to help kids say no to drugs. And they asked them specifically at that point, is this religion? Because we can't have you teaching religion to the kids. And they said, no, Narconon is separate from Scientology, and this is not us teaching Scientology. So they let them in, and then they had complaints, and they brought them back in. And they said, we're getting complaints. The kids are having nightmares. They're telling their parents they've got drugs in the fatty tissue of their bodies that could be let out at any time without warning and could cause them harm. Why are you teaching that to kids? It's not true. Science has proven that drugs do not reside indefinitely in any part of the body, and that they are dispelled from the body in a certain period of time. And you know that from people taking drug tests. How many days before did you use drugs? It's going to come up in the test. And if it's distant, it won't come up in the test. So Scientologists said, well, this is a truth. This is what we say is the truth. And the school said, no, it's not the truth. It's a belief. And now you're teaching religion. You're not doing a typical anti-drug program. You're teaching something. And so I shared this with the man who had been in Scientology for 27 years. And I said, I can understand that L. Ron Hubbard had some quaint beliefs that seemed valid at the time that he wrote, which was in the 1950s and 60s. So he wrote, and he thought that this was true. but science has proven it is not. So it was a theory that was disproven. And if what you believe in is science, and the name of the organization is Scientology, implying it's kind of scientific, why can't the group acknowledge that this was a mistake, this theory has been proven false, and then move on, which is what science does. Science, through evidence, will move beyond a theory that has been disproven. And he really struggled with that because he realized, yeah, what he's saying is true, and I showed him the documentation and everything and what had happened. And he realized, well, if when Hubbard is wrong about something, what do we do with that? Can't we realize that theory has been disproven and move on? And so that was the crack that opened up, that let everything else in, and then he left Scientology.
Yeah, the last time he did an interview, Miscavige, was with Ted Koppel, and I believe it's in '94 or something like that.
Yeah.
It could be. Rob, can you see what year that was, the Koppel interview? It's a long-time interview, and people have had a hard time finding his wife. They don't know where his wife is.
She's been located. She is in relatively comfortable setting.
Good shape?
In Northern California. I think somewhat near.
She was missing for 20 years though, 15 years though.
Not really. I think there was a point where people question, where is she? But eventually it would be established that she had been assigned to a Scientology branch in California, and that's where she works and she lives, and it's relatively secluded, and she is somewhat isolated. And you could even go so far as to say, well, David Miscavige did the equivalent of, woman, get thee to a nunnery.
Well, I mean, it says, since her disappearance in '07, she has been the subject of speculation and inquiries with her whereabouts. In 2012, attorneys who said they represented her responded by saying she was leading a private life devoted to the Church of Scientology. In 2013, Leah Remeni, a former Scientologist and critic of the organization, filed a missing person reporting Miscavige with the LA department. The LAPD closed the investigation within hours and described the report as unfounded. Has she showed herself? Have people seen her?
Yes.
She has?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And where has that been documented?
I think she was seen at a restaurant eating outside of
That's great news.
Outside of the compound. She also has the compound that she's in is in Northern California. It's relatively secluded. It's actually quite nice from what I've heard. So she is basically comfortably living, devoted to Scientology in seclusion. And you could argue that David Miscavige wanted to get rid of her, that he put her there to take her out of the limelight, that he didn't want to share the limelight with her, and that he wanted her out of his life. Be that as it may, she's not unaccounted for. She lives in this relatively comfortable place in Northern California, albeit a full-time Scientology facility where she's working for Scientology day in, day out, and this is her
that
life.
it, Rob?
This is the only Scientology in Northern California I could find. The Petriola, is that correct? They say it's a giant compound with a hidden bunker underneath.
And says what? That she is there?
That's the only Scientology headquarters that I could find in a remote, secluded location in Northern California.
I'm not really sure which facility it is by name, but it is in Northern California, and it's not a huge facility, but it's where she is. That may be the facility, in fact, there. But people know where she is. I mean, it's not a mystery. She has been there for a number of years.
Yeah, the niece was on News Nation just a few months ago. Did you see that interview?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Yes.
Yeah. She claimed that she has been seen, but doesn't want to give proof. So obviously she was critical of Scientology, but the niece herself says, I'm not sure. Let me just have this, Rob. I'm going to send this to you if you want to take a look at this. But if you're telling me this is breaking news for a lot of us because, most people didn't know if she was out there or not. But that's phenomenal news that she is good.
Hi, I'm Rick Allen Ross, cult expert, intervention specialist, author of the book Cults Inside Out. You can find me on Monect.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.